you described for the court of jury that at some point Mr. Simpson overheard a conversation between you and Cato Kalin regarding this earthquake. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then Mr. Simpson asked in kind of quizzical tones, oh, do we have an earthquake? Where's that effect?
Yes.
And was Mr. Simpson outside there when Cato Kalin asked you if you had a larger flashlight?
I'm not positive, no.
Did you ever hear Mr. Simpson make reference to a flashlight or possibly having a flashlight inside the house at all?
No.
Do you know whether or not he ever went inside looking for a flashlight?
Simpson or Cato?
Mr. Simpson.
No, not that I remember, no.
Or Mr. Cato?
No.
Did you ever hear Mr. Simpson make reference to looking for his phone book or having his phone book?
No.
Did you ever see a portable phone in Mr. Simpson's hands at any time that night?
Not that I remember.
So, at any rate, after these 2 or 3 times that Mr. Simpson came inside the residence, at some point he went back outside in the driveway area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. By the way, in the driveway, did you see any spots or anything on the driveway?
No, I didn't.
See any spots in the house at all?
No, I didn't.
Right. You didn't notice any spots anywhere, did you?
No.
All right. And as you drove your car in that driveway and out the Rockingham gate, you weren't mindful or cognizant of any spots that may or may not have been there?
No.
How long would you say that the limousine, the stretch limousine, was parked right outside the front door of the Rockingham residence before you had occasion to move it?
How long was it parked in his driveway?
Yes, in his driveway before you left to go to the airport.
10, 15 minutes, if that.
At most. So what time would you place yourself as getting in there and pulling into the driveway? What time would that be?
That would be at about 10:56, 10:57.
About 10:56, 10:57?
Somewhere around there, yes.
And you had seen this figure that you've described in dark clothing while you're on the phone with Dale St. John, is that correct?
Yes.
And that would have been after 10:52.17, is that correct?
Yes.
And it was prior to the end of your conversation with Dale St. John, which was at 10:55 and 12 seconds, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you tell us that you continued to talk to St. John for a period of time after you saw this figure?
Yes, just for very briefly, a few seconds.
All right. So would your estimate be that you saw this figure somewhere between 10:54 and 10:55?
Yes.
And you can then concluded your conversation with St. John, is that right?
Yes.
All right. And then, as I understand it, you then shortly thereafter gained entrance to the Rockingham estate there, is that right?
Yes.
Because of Cato Kalin. And you would place that within a couple of minutes that you got inside?
Yes.
And then you were then in there for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, is that correct?
Yes.
And you believe that you left the Rockingham residence somewhere between 11:05 and 11:15 is your best recollection. Is that correct?
Yes. I know it was after 11:05.
After 11:05?
Yeah.
And maybe before 11:15?
Yes.
All right.
It wasn't after 11:15. It wasn't before 11:05.
So it was after 11:05 and before 11:15 probably.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
All right. Now, at some point, you described for us that you got all of these bags were assembled. In fact, you put some bags into the vehicle yourself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you put which bags did you put inside the vehicle?
I put in the designer bag into the trunk,
Okay.
and the 2 duffel bags that were on the porch. I asked him where he'd like those,
Yes, sir.
and he said he wanted those inside the car.
All right. And you described, I believe, in response to one of Mr. Clark's questions that one of these black duffel bags was unzipped. Is that correct?
Yes.
But did you look inside and see the contents?
No.
All right.
Wasn't
That
paying
would be bad form, right?
Yes.
To peek in somebody's
Yes.
luggage? So you didn't do that, did you?
No.
All right. At any rate, you put those 2 bags inside the car?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you participate in putting any other bags inside that car?
Not that I remember. I might have readjusted the golf bags with Cato or something.
And Cato after being handed the golf bag, is your recommendation, strike that. Your recollection is that Cato Kalin actually put this golf bag into the limousine at some point, is that right?
Yes.
And he received it, your recollection is he received it from Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
right? And where did he put the golf bag?
Into the trunk.
All right. And with regard to the bag, the smaller bag we've been talking about, marked at B there on the diagram that's now up again, this plane 66E, you don't recall whether that bag was placed inside or inside the vehicle or in the trunk of the vehicle, do you?
Correct.
You don't know?
No.
All right. Now, so at some point, all the bags are in the car, and you're about ready to leave at that point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us where was Cato Kalin at the point when you were just about to leave the residence?
He was just about where the K is. He was in that area.
All right. And this was prior to this. This is about the location he is. And for the record, Your Honor, there are 2 Ks. So which K are you talking about? The blue K or the green K?
Yes. Down by the corner of the garage, the blue K.
The blue K, down by the corner of the garage?
Yes.
And that was after the conversation that you heard wherein Mr. Simpson was going to go one way and he was going to go the other way to look for this sound or this noise, is that right?
Yes.
And then Mr. Simpson noticed what time it was, and he said, we got to go, is that right?
Correct.
And you endorsed that and agreed with that, did you not?
But yes. I thought we should have left a while ago.
All right, you were already kind of late as far as you were concerned.
Yes.
All right. And this was fairly unfamiliar territory for you, I presume. You had not ever gone to LAX from the Rockingham location, is that right?
Correct.
All right. So you left Cato at point K, blue K, Your Honor, on 66E. And then did you then prepare to leave the residence?
Yes.
All right. And as I understand it, in response to questions that I'd asked you earlier from the grand jury and the preliminary hearing testimony, you then proceeded out the Rockingham gate, is that correct?
Correct.
And does that gate open automatically when you drive up to it?
I think Cato had to open it.
All right. You think that Cato came and opened it?
Yeah, he walked back over.
All right. So then he then left point K, blue K, and walked over to the front there on the Rockingham?
Correct.
All right. And that's when you then pulled out onto Rockingham and you turned left, is that right?
Correct.
To go back, where you were going towards Sunset?
Yes.
And as I understand your testimony, then now you and Mr. Simpson, of course, are alone in the car, right?
Yes.
And he gives you some directions about how to get to LAX, does he?
Not at that point, no.
Right. I mean,
Just
at some point during the ride.
yes.
All right. You know how to get back to Sunset, right?
Yes.
All right. But as I understand it, that when you get down to Sunset and the 405, you believe that you have to turn left to go up by that kind of circular hotel there?
Yes, because I've in previous jobs I used to deliver some equipment to UCLA.
Yes.
So I used to come back across the bridge and then go around that way. So I thought that was the only way back on the freeway. I didn't know there was another one on the right side, which he told me.
Mr. Simpson told you about
Yes.
the way you could go to the right or south, is that right?
Exactly.
And as I understand your testimony, you missed that. You missed the first on-ramp going south on the 405, is that right?
Yes.
But you were told that if you continued going southbound on the surface streets, you'd run into another on-ramp.
Yes.
And you did that, did you not?
Yes.
All right. And at some point, he also gave you some guidance with regard to getting off at Sepulveda to save some time?
Yes.
Is that correct? All right. Now, you described in response to one of Ms. Clark's questions that it was a June night that I believe you said it was somewhere perhaps 68 to 70 degrees, something like that.
Somewhere around there.
All right, it was June, and Mr. Simpson said to you on a couple of occasions, maybe 2, possibly 3 occasions in a row, that I'm hot. Words to that effect, is that correct?
Yes.
And you told him or showed him where the air conditioning was, is that correct?
I don't know if I showed him. I told him that he can use the air conditioning.
All right. And you could hear the air conditioning coming on?
Yes.
All right. And in most limousines, there's a partition between the where the client sits and where the limousine driver sits, and was that partition down during the course of your ride?
Yes.
So the two of you could talk back and forth, is that right?
Yes.
All right. And as you drove up, did you drive fairly rapidly?
Yes.
Because you wanted to make this flight again, is that
Correct.
right? So you got on the 405 and we're moving out, right?
Yes.
Okay. You described that at some point, did Mr. Simpson ask you where the light was back there? In the rear compartment?
Yeah, he asked me where a light was.
And as I understand what you said to Ms. Clark, was the light was only on briefly for perhaps 20 to 30 seconds at most. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Simpson said something to the effect that I was rushing around trying to get packed. I'm sure I'm forgetting something or words to that effect. Isn't that correct?
Yes, everybody says that.
All right. And that didn't seem out of the ordinary to you, did it?
No.
All right. And you had, in fact, seen him rushing around. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And he had also told you he'd taken a shower. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So you think it unusual that he was sweating occasionally, did you? Having rushed around and taken a shower, it wasn't unusual he might be sweating, was it?
No.
And so you just continued to drive at this point as you had some conversation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as your best recollection is that Mr. Simpson had the two duffel bags in the back with him. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. You don't recall any other bags at that point, do you?
Back there with him?
Yes, back there.
No.
Okay. And did that limousine have a phone in the back of it?
Yes, it did.
He didn't use the phone at that point either, did he?
No.
All right. So the two of you were just intent on getting to the airport. Is that right?
Correct.
And as I understand it, you got to the airport by 11:35.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And how long was the drive altogether, your best recollection?
It was pretty fast. It couldn't have been not much more than 10 minutes.
You got there pretty fast?
Yeah, 10, maybe a little bit longer.
How fast were you driving?
I'm 75, hitting 80, some parts.
All right. You were going pretty fast.
Yes.
Okay. And so you got there, and then you went around to American Airlines, you went around to Terminal 4, right, at American Airlines?
Correct.
And you pulled up to the curb, did you?
Not all the way to the curb, no. I think there might have been another car.
You got as close as you could?
Yes.
And Mr. Simpson asked you if you would help by getting a sky cap?
Yes.
And as I understand it, you weren't able to get a sky cap, but ultimately you got one of those carts and brought it over.
Yes.
Is that correct? And you let Mr. Simpson out of the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to that, it's your recollection that at some time after Mr. Simpson got out, and although his plane was leaving in about 10 minutes, somebody approached him and asked an autograph?
Yes.
And did you see him accommodate that individual?
Yes, he did.
And did he sign the autograph?
Yeah. Yes.
He also took the time to ask you or to tell you to add 20% to the bill?
Yes.
Did you do that?
I told Dale that's what he said, and he said, okay, no problem.
All right.
Actually, I told Dale 50%, but
Did you?
no.
Kidding, I'm sure.
Yes.
But at any rate, but you did, in fact, follow through with what Mr. Simpson had said about your services there.
Yes.
Okay. And you took that you'd done a good job in getting him there to the airport, is that correct?
Yes, and he made it.
Huh?
He made it.
He did make it.
Yeah.
And then how long did you, from the time you got there at 11:35, how long did you remain with Mr. Simpson at that point?
Not very long at all.
In minutes, your best estimate?
3-4 minutes.
So would it be a fair statement to say that you last saw Mr. Simpson somewhere 11:38, 11:39 that particular night? That'd be a fair
Yes.
statement? All right, and then you still believe that his flight would be leaving at about 11:45, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And in the sequence of events, when did this person approach him to get the autograph? I mean, was it after you went and got the cart, or at what point was that?
I can't remember if it was right when we got out of the car to start with the bags, or if it was when we started to walk up to the sky cap. I just remember the scenario happening.
All right. And you and Mr. Simpson participated in putting the luggage on this particular cart, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the cart was then taken inside the terminal there for American Airlines?
No, the cart I pushed over, and the SkyCap had the bigger luggage cart, which I put the golf bags and the designer bag onto.
All right.
And that
So
was
that
about
was
when I left.
Was that outside on that walkway in front of Terminal 4?
Yes, it was.
It's kind of like curbside check-in.
Yes.
And this big kind of dolly or whatever would be used to go on the conveyor belt to get on the plane. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was there some mention of the fact that this had to be expedited at this point?
Not that I know of, no.
All right. At any rate, you were asked a question with regard to Mr. Simpson's tip, not for you, but for the SkyCap. And you recall that at some point, Mr. Simpson reached into his pocket and took some change out?
Yes.
And now where were you at that point?
That was right when I was done putting the golf clubs and the designer bag on the bigger cart. And that's when I turned around. He was getting some money out of his pocket, and that's when I said, see you later.
Okay, and that was you. At that point, you were still out there on that walkway in front of American Airlines or Terminal 4?
Yes.
And you saw him at that point reach into his pocket, but you didn't see whether he handed what he handed the SkyCap?
No.
All right. So that's the last time you saw him then?
Yes.
You then got back into your vehicle and took off, is that correct?
Correct.
There was all the luggage had been taken out of the car, is that correct?
Yes.
There's no blood in the back of that car, was there?
No.
No blood on the carpet of that car, was there?
No.
You didn't see him bleeding that night, did you?
No.
And there's nothing about Mr. Simpson that seemed unusual to you that night, isn't that correct?
Like,
Oh,
like I said, I've never met him, so I don't know his normal behavior.
All right, do you recall being asked that question by Ms. Clark at the preliminary hearing, page 41? What's bad? You still put it as a bad question? Okay, good. Well, I still want to ask it. Page 41, line 23 and 24. Do you recall being asked this question? Okay, I'm sorry. 41 preliminary hearing, line 23, 24. I think this is you. Let me start then, Your Honor. Let me begin at line 18 down to, let me go through 26. All right? Question. Can you describe the defendant's behavior that night when you saw him at the point that you were packing up the car with him and getting ready to leave? Answer. Well, I've never met him before, so everything seemed okay to me. Question by Ms. Clark. Nothing seemed unusual to you? Answer, no. Question. Did you notice any injuries to his hands? Answer, no, I didn't. Do you recall also testifying?
Yes.
Your Honor, this might be a good point if the court would allow.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you. Mr. Park, you may step down. You're ordered to return tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. You were also ordered not to discuss your testimony with anybody except for the lawyers and your own attorney. Do you understand the order, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
All right, we'll stand in recess, 9 o'clock.